Taking another look at the playoff bracket, LSU jumping Ohio State. So they get Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, where they just won the SEC championship game. Ohio State drops to 2, so they have to go out to the Fiesta Bowl and face the defending champion Clemson Tigers on a 28-game winning streak. Ohio State, the higher-ranked team, but Clemson is the slight favorite. Now, the New Year's 6 games announced mid-afternoon. And just like Jerry Palm predicted, this is how it lines up. Baylor and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, Wisconsin, Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Those games on New Year's Day. Memphis, the highest-ranked Group of 5 champion with the automatic bid, taking on Penn State. That game in Dallas is the Cotton Bowl. And the Orange Bowl is number 24, Virginia against Florida. Virginia going because the ACC champion Clemson is in the college football playoff, and then they take the next highest-ranked ACC team, and that is Virginia. So we've got Jerry Palm and Dennis Dodd here, and Jerry, congratulations. You got the New Year's 6 right. You got 1 through 15 right, with the exception of 1-2.
Right.
And I think a lot of us thought it was going to be Ohio State, but LSU ended up number 1. That was the only thing that you did not get spot on, so congratulations to you. It's been a good year for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's start with the Rose Bowl as we talk New Year's 6 here. You called it Wisconsin against Oregon.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin, the committee, like I said, the committee has a history of being kind to conference championship game losers. They don't dock them too much as long as you're the underdog and you lose. And that's what happened to Wisconsin. So they got to stay above Penn State. They get to go to the Rose Bowl, and Wisconsin fans will be thrilled to get to go to the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's the Big Ten tradition, and get to play a really good Oregon team that's very good on both lines of scrimmage. Wisconsin very good on both lines of scrimmage. It's going to be, I think, a slugfest. I mean, despite the fact that Oregon has got what a lot of people consider an NFL quarterback, I think this is going to be, a little bit old school football. 2 power running teams, C.J. Verdell and Jonathan Taylor. You're going to see a game maybe in 2.5 hours. I'm kidding, but you know what I'm talking about.
2:45.
2:45, maybe something like that. A side story, Justin Herbert, I think, has fallen a little bit in terms of NFL prospect accuracy issues. There are going to be a lot of people they're going to want to watch that. But I love what Mario Cristobal's done with Oregon. They're on that upward trajectory to get into a playoff someday. They were that close, so we'll see.
And rare, Oregon in the position where you win a conference championship game and you go to a New Year's 6 game. Most of the other ones go to the college football playoff, 4 of the 5, obviously, of in the Power 5 schools. You mentioned Justin Herbert a couple of weeks ago. He wasn't even in the first round of Ryan Wilson's mock. He's kind of been in and out of the first round, up around 17 this past week. You got to think he's going to play, right? I mean, because this is a big stage. I know it's not the playoff, but the Rose Bowl is a big stage. If you have a big game here, your stock really rises.
I think he needs to get on film, for nothing else. A 13th or 14th or 13th piece of film for him, because I just said I think he slipped a little bit, and Ryan Wilson projected that. So, yeah, that's really important. I don't think a guy like him sits out. If you're a Tua and you're pre-injury top player in the draft, maybe you think about it in a bowl like this, but no, he's got to play.
Okay, so let's move on to the Sugar Bowl, which is Georgia against Baylor. So the loser of the SEC championship game against the loser of the Big 12 championship game. Baylor that close from making the college football playoff.
Really, yeah, overtime with their third-string quarterback. I mean, that was a remarkable performance by Baylor to go through 3 quarterbacks. The first one gets hurt, and then you bring in the backup, and then you make a switch, and it was weird because they played 3 quarterbacks. The only one who didn't throw a touchdown pass was the starter. And but that, I mean, it was, they were doing it with duct tape and bubble gum yesterday, and really a lot of times this year, and they've got a great reward. I mean, 1 win 2 years ago, and now they're in a Sugar Bowl. I think it's fantastic.
That's what makes them so endearing, is the fact that they've done all this with not great talent. Something to watch. Charlie Brewer, the quarterback, had a head injury yesterday. We don't know how bad that is. They were down to their third-string quarterback, as Jerry said.
You talk about Baylor being endearing. How often have we said that in the last?
We weren't saying it 3 or 4 years ago.
That's the biggest turnaround of all with this program, is that they're suddenly lovable again.
Side note to that, will Matt Rule be their coach for the game? I think he will. It might be his last game, though, before he goes to the NFL, between him and Lincoln Riley. But watch the number of fans that come to New Orleans for this. They haven't been in forever. Obviously, Baylor, a little bit of old, same old for Georgia. They expected to play for a championship this year.
The only thing you could say for Georgia is last year got blown out by Texas. I mean, maybe that'll give them some added motivation. We know they wanted a little bit more. Baylor, what has it been since the 50s?
It was actually the 1956 season, January 1st, 1957 Sugar Bowl. Baylor beat Tennessee.
We all remember that, don't we?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Well, we don't bring up a lot of facts that are older than me on these events, but that one's older than me.
This is big for Baylor. I mean, a team that they've been on the cusp of BCS championships and playoffs. They never quite got there. This is an opportunity for maybe the biggest win in program history.
Yeah, well, certainly recent history, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, they won 11 back in 2013 pre-scandal. And I should point out that Baylor doesn't want me to point this out, but they are under NCAA investigation. Possibility they could get hit hard. So this could be the biggest highlight for Baylor in the next few years.
Let's move on to the Orange Bowl, which is, last few years it's kind of been like this.
Yes,
because it's been Clemson and nobody else in the ACC, with Florida State down. Virginia was the team that the Orange Bowl had to take. Florida, good, at-large SEC school, but I don't think a lot of Florida fans are going to be that excited about the opponent.
Well, yeah, I agree. But as you say, had to take. I mean, they probably would have taken Virginia even if they had a choice. But the gap between Clemson and the rest of this league seems to be getting bigger, not smaller. And so that's why, like, the Mike Norvell hiring at Florida State is so important, because that's the program that's closest in terms of talent to being able to challenge Clemson quickly. But he's got his work cut out for him to do that. But yeah, you've got a game here. Florida's, I don't know what the early line is. Got to be at least 2 touchdowns, I would think, for Florida. Not the most explosive offense in the world, but a real smothering defense. And they'll get tested by the Virginia quarterback, I think. But it's Florida should win this game, I would think.
And Florida fans will travel because it's so close. And there's a lot at stake here. They win 10 2 years in a row under Dan Mullen. I mentioned it before. Only the third coach to do that, Florida. The other 2 guys were named Spurrier and Meyer. Kyle Trask, who didn't start a game in high school. Dan Mullen is a quarterback maker. I don't care what anybody says. And the arrow is pointing way up for Florida in the future.
I get the bowl tie-ins and all that, but from a fan perspective, it would be nice if the Orange Bowl had an opportunity to take somebody else, wouldn't it? I mean, is there any way that we look at this, we revisit this in the future? Because it seems like every year you get the second best ACC team, and that's
not good.
Yeah, no. But that could turn around in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I mean, it really
that could be a Florida State.
Everything in college football is so cyclical that, I mean, Clemson could come back to the pack. Something could happen, and Clemson comes back to the pack.
That could be a Florida State if Mike Norvell gets it going.
Yeah.
Clemson's not going to come back to the pack.
No, it doesn't look like it. But that's just, but college football,
yeah.
I mean, you're one coaching hire, good or bad, away from your program taking a very different turn.
I just wish there was more flexibility in the process where bowls select teams, where you could get a
Well, the Orange Bowl did not have to agree to saying we're going to have an ACC versus SEC Big Ten Notre Dame matchup. They chose to do that. So maybe next time they don't want to do that. Yeah. But I'll be surprised if we end up with a bowl structure where an ACC representative isn't guaranteed.
Okay, let's move on to the Cotton Bowl. Memphis, the highest-ranked Group of 5 champion, without their head coach, Mike Norvell, who is now the head coach at Florida State, going into its biggest game in program history against Penn State.
Yeah, I think obviously huge for Memphis. A great chance to grab a lot of momentum for the new coach, coming in, because it's an older team, right? So they figured to take a step back next year no matter what, even if Coach Norvell had stayed. But, it gives you a lot of juice on the recruiting trail if you can go out and win a game like this over a big-name program like Penn State. And not just a big-name program, but a really good football team.
And again, for the fan base of Penn State, these bowls I don't want to say aren't a big deal, but they've been here before. For Memphis, literally once in a lifetime.
Yep.
There'll be a lot of Memphis fans there. I don't know how many living alumni there are at Memphis, but most of them will be at the Cotton Bowl.
Penn State, number 10 in the nation, just ahead of Utah. So Utah barely misses.
But they got.
What if they hadn't gotten beat as bad as they did?
It might have been different. I think the margin definitely mattered. In fact, the committee showed us that margin mattered in these championship games with LSU and Ohio State as well. So, yeah, their problem was they had no quality wins. They played 2 teams in the rankings and lost them both. They lost the highest-rated team they played badly. And they basically got the same treatment that Alabama did, with the difference being that as you dropped Alabama down there, you found what team that beat them, so they ended up a little bit lower. Utah didn't have the disadvantage of having lost specifically to Auburn.
And the Cotton Bowl is thrilled, attendance-wise, to get Penn State out.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I want to see K.J. Hamler, the receiver, the fastest player on Penn State's team, maybe one of the fastest players in the Big Ten, match up against these group of 5 guys.
Yeah, I tell you, it's funny. The Big Ten receivers, you got like a Rondell Moore,
Yep.
and Minnesota's got a guy that can really fly, and Ohio State's got a guy that can really fly.
Robinson at Nebraska.
Robinson.
Was not in the Bowls, but
gosh, there's a lot of really short, fast receivers in the Big Ten.
That's a good point.
You mentioned Alabama, not in the New Year's Six for the first time since 2010. The Tide really were punished for that loss at the end of the season.
Same thing, though. Who did they beat this year?
No ranked teams, right?
No ranked teams. Texas A&M was their best win. And, they had 2 games. And unlike Utah, they didn't get blown out in either game that they lost. They didn't get blown out by LSU, although LSU was in control. They didn't get blown out by Auburn. That went down to the wire, but just eventually, in the end, you didn't beat anybody this year.
This was the year Alabama became a Big 12 team, maybe not by choice. In other words, they'd outscore people. And it started the week before the season when Dylan Moses went down. The core of their defense had to play 2 freshmen on defense, as many as 7 on the field at one time between offense and defense. And you saw it at the end of the year, giving up all those points.
But I don't.
You lose your quarterback, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but
cut to the chase.
Yeah, quarterback, sure, but I don't feel too bad for Alabama when they have to play freshmen because their freshmen are 4- and 5-star guys.
They're gonna come back stronger because of it.
Yeah.
What do we think happens with Tua Tagovailoa? He held the press conference the other day, said that he's still weighing all his options. That if he hears that he's definitely going to be a top 15 pick, it would be hard to pass that up. But it seems like at least he's saying he's leaving the door open to returning.
The fact that he would even suggest that he's coming back shocked me. If you're going to get hurt like that, at least get paid for it. He's going to lose a lot of money. He didn't get loss of draft value insurance, which may cost him up to $10 or $20 million if he was the number 1 overall choice. But to come back and risk that, I get it. Matt Leinart did it. Peyton Manning did it. Others did. But the nature of his injury, I would not put to the test in college anymore. But good for him. And I talked to people at Alabama. He sincerely means it. That's definitely an option for him.
Well, I mean, I'm with you. If I'm gonna get paid, or if I'm gonna risk getting hurt again, I'm gonna get paid to get rid. And not only that, not to disparage Alabama's trainers at all, but you're gonna get NFL medical help, which is obviously they've got a ton of money to invest in that. That more than even the big schools have. So I would totally take my chances in the pros.
He's won a championship.
Even
if
he has to sit out a full year.
And
right?
I think that's even been talked about as well with that hip.
Well, we wish him the best moving forward. Guys, thank you so much for the time. Jerry Palm, great job. Got all the New Year's 6 matchups right. Got the top 15 right with the exception of Ohio State 1, LSU 2. Jerry Palm, Dennis Dodd, thank you so much.